From Motionsoft's corporate office in Rockville, Maryland, welcome, and thank you for taking time out of your busy day to attend the MoSo Mercury release webinar. This webinar is designed to give you a sneak peek into MoSo feature enhancements and upgrades that will be released later this month. I'm Todd Tweedy, your moderator and web organizer. Before I introduce your presenter today, I'd like to remind you that this webinar is being recorded. Your microphones are muted, but you will have the ability to ask questions via the chat feature that I'll review with you momentarily. When the webinar concludes, I'll send an email with a link to download this presentation as well as the webinar recording. As always, if you're interested in exploring the full list of MoSo features, enhancements, and upgrades, please visit the MoSo wiki at wiki.mosocloud.com. Before we start, let's take a moment to ensure that everyone is familiar with the webinar control panel. First, you should have a control panel on the right side of your screen, similar to the image you're seeing on the slide here. You may minimize this panel by clicking on the double arrow in the upper left corner. You can also expand the control panel by clicking the same button. If you could, take a moment now to practice using the minimization and expand button feature. During this webinar, you'll also have the ability to submit questions using the chat panel located near the bottom of the control panel. It's highlighted here in red. Please take a moment now to familiarize yourself with the chat panel and practice sending a question via the chat window. If you could, please type hello and click the send button. Awesome, thank you very much. Finally, I want to let you know that your Q&A sessions will be held after each core topic is presented. Since this webinar is designed to give you a sneak peek of new MoSo Mercury feature enhancements and upgrades, please keep your questions during the webinar limited to these feature enhancements and upgrades. If you have specific questions concerning the Mercury release, please contact your support representative by calling 1-800-829-4321 or by emailing support@motionsoft.net. If we run out of time during our presentation or not able to address your question today during the webinar, a member of the Motionsoft support team will follow up with you directly. Our presenter is someone many of you may already know, Katie Rodriguez. Katie is often traveling on site to meet Motionsoft customers to support them in fully leveraging MoSo features and functionalities as a member of the professional services team. As our senior training consultant, Katie's primary focus is partnering with internal business analysts and product managers at Motionsoft and you, our customers, to design tailored training programs. Katie is a 16-year veteran of the fitness industry and still teaches group fitness classes. Welcome, Katie Rodriguez. Katie, please take it away.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much, Todd, and thank you so much for attending our webinar this afternoon. We're thrilled to show you some of the new features that are coming out in the Mercury release. Again, as Todd said, that will happen later this month. Here's sort of just a little summary, a little overview of what we're going to go over today. We've got some general feature changes to the system that we think you're all going to be pretty pumped about. We also have some updates to funding sources and billing. We have some enhancements to our corporates or organizations, as MoSo likes to call them. We have also some permission and restriction changes. And then we also have some name changes and then some new reports to show you in Mercury. All right, so let's go ahead and get this party started with some general features. So I'm sure many of you looking at this slide right now are clapping your hands, or I hope you are, because this option that we have added allows the printing icon to show up under the invoices screen, under the usage tab, and also you can now print from activity history. So let me go ahead and show you where you're going to find those. If we look up Mary Member, and we look that Mary, obviously she's our member here. If we go into her invoices, if we search by a date range, we'll now be able to print this screen by using this button right here. The button looks the exact same in usage. You just select the date range, click refresh, and then you're able to print from that screen as well. Now when we go to Mary's activity management, obviously we can see all of these different things that she's got going on, but we want to print from the history. And by doing that, we'd have to select the package that we'd like to print, and then the print icon's found down here at the bottom in this screen. So like I said, I'm sure many of you are clapping your hands because you have been waiting for this feature, and we are so excited that it is coming out in Mercury. All right, moving on. So we are going to be combining check-in messages and notes. So obviously, the check-in messages are currently today found under the Member tab, or in this case, the Client tab. They're found in this blank space down here. In Mercury, we're going to combine both the notes and the check-in alerts so that those can be put in one place, and you'll be able to find all of them under the same tab. So that being said, if you want the note to pop up at check-in, you would just select this check-in. You just put a check in the check-in area right here. So if I'm adding a note and I say, Mary left her book on the bike, I can make that a check-in note for Mary. The note type is going to be check-in, and then I can also say that the contact type will be check-in. I can update, and then when I go ahead and check her in, I have the ability to have more than one check-in message. So she left her water bottle in the spin studio, and we put it in the lost and found. So when we go ahead and check Mary in, we're going to see those different check-in messages along with any alerts that are coming up with her account. So she's missing her signature, but then we can also see that she left her water bottle in the spin studio and she left her book on the bike. Mary's a little bit forgetful. If you'd like to clear either of those, you can clear them obviously right here, X out, and then allow her access to the club. So that is very fun. Now, I'm sure many of you are thinking, well, I already have a check-in message history right under my member button, or right where check-in history or check-in alerts used to be, check-in messages used to be. When your club goes live on Mercury, all of those check-in messages from whenever you started MoSo on, you're going to find all of those in the Notes tab moving forward. So we're just going to go ahead and push those over for you. All right, the next feature is extending events. Some of you use our events or our group exercise classes, small group training, boot camp programs in MoSo. Currently today in the system, when you schedule an event, you schedule it for a certain period of time. Once the event expires, you have to go in, create a new event with possibly the same employee, the same resource. It might use a lot of the same things. And previously, you would have to do that work over and over and over again every time the event expired. Well, now we're allowing you to extend the event by a certain number of classes or by a specific date. So if that doesn't make a lot of sense, let me go ahead and show you. So under the Events tab, here we've got spinning, which is a group exercise class, boxing and bells, which might be a small group training. Once this class is about to expire and the group exercise manager or whomever decides that this class wants to be extended for the next period of time. So all we do is go to Create Extension. We can select the event type. So if it's going to be spinning, we can select spinning. If it's going to be any instance or all events, we can select whichever one we'd like. Then we go ahead and click on Search. It gives us the one particular class. This one is at 4 p.m. and it ends at 5 p.m. and it's weekly on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. We can move to Next. It asks us if we'd like to extend by the number of occurrences or by the date. And I'm going to go ahead and extend it by the number of occurrences. And I want to do that by 10 occurrences. Since it happens 3 times a week, we'll go ahead and go with 18. So we're going to extend it out for 6 weeks. Click Next. And then it asks, okay, are you sure this is the original end date? And then we want it to move to this end date. If you're clear, then we can process this, and it will automatically extend the event for you. So I hope that that is exciting for some of you that have to go in every single time and create these new events. The one other thing I'd like you to note on the event screen is we've changed the Add Single and Add Multiple buttons So you'll see that it's now a little bit easier to understand, either add a program or add a class, either one. So program would be small group training, maybe that's a fee-based program, and add class is your group exercise. All right, moving right along here. We are simplifying in Mercury the ability to reinstate redeemed activities or sessions. So MoSo calls sessions activities, so we'll go ahead and call them that as well. But we've added the ability to reinstate these activities through My Planner. So what that means for you, if you currently have this permission already, you'll notice there's a staff appointments audit screen, and this is where you can see all of your staff for that day, time, whatever date range you've selected at the top, and the location that you've selected. Now again, like I said, if you already have this permission, the permission will carry over when we move to Mercury, or when your club moves to Mercury. So what this is going to do is just allow you, if the session has already been redeemed, it'll allow you to reinstate that redeemed session right from this screen. So previously, what we would have to do is we would have to go to the members activity management. We would have to select the history, all, we would go to whatever was redeemed, and then we'd have to use the button down here. So what this allows you to really do is pretty much just a one-stop shop for anybody that you need to reinstate within the time period that you've selected. Okay, so here's another one where you're probably going to clap your hands, so get excited. This new feature allows for you to sell an agreement for another location. So what we've essentially done is given a permission within the permissions tree and staff work roles to add an agreement for the locations that your work role allows. If you have multiple locations, if you cover several different clubs, maybe you're a regional manager or maybe you're a membership consultant that helps out at multiple locations. So it can set the permission at how many locations you have access to or all of the locations within your enterprise. So what this means is when you're going to sell an agreement, so let's say we're going to sell Joe Smith here an agreement, we can start that new agreement. If you notice I'm in default facility up here, I can now click through whatever location I want and move through the agreement wizard selling the agreement at this facility. So previously, if you had to go up and flip-flop between facilities at the top, you would lose everything that you're working on and you'd have to start over. If you had a member on the phone, it would lose everything and then you'd have to look up the member again. So now again, we're just going to allow you to toggle between, to select a new facility here and then follow the agreement wizard all the way through. Okay.
Katie, before we jump on to the next section, are there any questions from the audience concerning the general features that have been reviewed by Katie thus far? If you could, please type your question into the chat window now.
Okay, great. So now we're going to move on to some updates and changes within funding sources and billing. So to begin here, we're going to add, when you upgrade to Mercury, a last modified section under the funding source in your Accounts tab. So any member's Account tab. This allows you to audit when a funding source was last updated without having to go through data analytics or My Planner. So this will allow you to get there with fewer clicks. If a member says, oh, I last updated my funding source on this date, and you go to their account and you see, oh, it looks like maybe it didn't save on that date, so we can do it again for them right there. So this last modified, you're just going to see right underneath the credit card or right next to the credit card. So if we go back to my member here, Mary, there she is, her Accounts tab. And we can see right now, we'll see it underneath. So this was last modified by the admin, and it was modified on 8/15. Okay, so this next feature is pretty exciting, I would say, but also it can get a little bit confusing. So I'm going to explain it to you first, and then I'm going to show you. So the advanced funding source or tender search. So essentially, what this means is we now created a module that allows the back office or whoever has permission to search by either a credit card number or a bank draft, any bank draft information, to decide whether an account is being used as a funding source or whether it's been used in a transaction. So a couple of exciting things about this is it will show you, obviously, the funding sources within an agreement. It will show you the primary agreement holder. It will also show you any payments through point of sale that this credit card was used for, and all of the results are exportable to Excel. So let me show you how you'll see this. When you go over here to your menu, you'll click your search or your magnifying glass, and you'll begin to type in tender type. Tender type lookup is the module that we've created. So when you go to this particular module, you'll just start with whether it's a credit card or a bank draft, and then you'll enter the account number. So you must have the full credit card number to be able to search. So obviously we're using a dummy credit card number, and I can just use whatever expiration date I feel it should expire. Once I click save, it's going to put the account number over here. Okay, so we can make sure that those are the last four. Then I can choose whether I'm searching for a funding source or a payment. If I'm searching for a funding source, it's going to gray out the date range because it's a funding source on an agreement, so it doesn't really matter what date range it's through. If you're searching for a payment, you can search through a date range. So if I go ahead and look just over the last few days and see how many people or what transactions have been paid for with this credit card ending in 1111, I click search, it'll show me that both Joe and Jane Smith use this credit card with this invoice number. Their invoice numbers are right there at the Park Place business unit on this particular day. If I click to this right here, it's just going to take me to their account so that I can go ahead and look at the invoice for which they paid. It also will tell you the salesperson here. Now this is going to look a little different when I show you what the funding source looks like, simply because we use this default credit card on many of our funding sources within the agreement. So if I click search here, it's going to show you all of the members that have this as a credit card funding source. So this is going to be most helpful for you when disputing chargebacks or when you're trying to look up a funding source for someone. Okay, moving right along. We now have an improved process for credit card updater. So some of you are familiar, some of you aren't. So we're going to start with the way that the CAU or credit card account updater works in MoSo or currently works in MoSo for you today. So today, this process happens when billing happens. So the credit card updater is run on all of the cards that were declined, all of the soft declines that come back after billing. So we send out the soft declines or any cards that have expired, and participating banks will send us the updated card information. So currently today, it's run at the time of billing, and it's run for only the cards that have soft declined or have expired. Moving forward, when you upgrade to Mercury, the credit account updater, credit card updater, as I like to call it, will work in the following way. It will send out all cards that you have within your system on a designated day that you get to pick for each month. So a couple of benefits of this, it's going to maximize the collections that you receive on the first billing run. Because if you schedule this before your billing, you'll be able to update those cards that would typically decline. And then second of all, It's also going to allow the information to, well, I just said that, update in MoSo sooner, and then it will allow for you to get more money when you run your billing the first time. So as you can see in the second bullet here, this can be set up at the enterprise level, at the division level, or at the business unit level. It can only be run 1 day per month, and when your system is upgraded to Mercury, we're going to default all of the systems to the 24th of each month. So if you need to change that date, if you think that you want it to be a different date, go ahead and take a look at the notes in the wiki so that you can go through the standalone CAU configuration, which you can find under Financials Configuration. Okay, some more funding source or billing features that we have for you. Returning a billing invoice. So previously in MoSo, if any invoice was automatically generated through an agreement, you were not able to return that invoice. In Mercury, we'll be able to return the invoices that are generated during that automatic process, and we'll be able to do it through point of sale. So you're going to search by the customer invoice number, very similar to how you did previously in the transaction screen. And then you'll type in the customer, the invoice number, and then you just select the return invoice button on the bottom. It's important to remember a couple of things with this feature. Number one, you cannot return an invoice that has been associated with any installment or payment plan. And number two, if a customer has just billed for August, let's say, well, yes, we are in August. A customer just billed in August, and you're going to return their invoice for a customer service reason or some other reason. If they're still planning to come to the club from now until the end of the month, it's going to cancel any of those activities or access that's associated with that invoice that you just returned. So it may be best to return a July invoice instead of an August invoice if they're still going to be using the club throughout the month. Okay. Moving right along, we're going to stick with items that can be returned from agreements, and we're going to talk about different upsell items that can now be returned in a seamless process through point of sale. So in the past, if you were selling an agreement that had any upsell items, maybe if they purchased personal training right now at the time of sale, they would get a 20% discount, so they purchased it right away. Or maybe they purchased some child care at the time, whatever it might be, certain number of visits, whatever. If the member ever wanted to return those items, the only way to return those items was to go through the cancellation wizard, cancel the agreement completely, and then resell it without these upsell items. So now, I'm sure you're pumped, we've given you the opportunity to cancel that particular upsell item. So let's pretend that Mary, my member, she would like to, if you look at her agreement here, she has purchased an upsell item of service for $100. So if I look at her invoice, which is 4581, I go to point of sale transactions, and I'm going to search that invoice. Click OK. Might minimize that just for a second so you can see the bottom. If I select here, this is the service bundle, and she also purchased a year access. So I'm going to return this invoice. It's going to give me the option to return that service upsell bundle that she purchased. Click Next. It asks me for the reason, so I'm just going to say it's a POS refund. She got injured. Poor Mary. So now we go to Next. It says the amount that's going to be due to the customer is $100. I click Next. I'm going to enter my PIN number. And then I can add tender to return that $100 to her. So very easy, very seamless, and I'm sure many of you are pretty excited about this because it takes a lot of steps away having to go through the cancellation wizard and then resell the agreement. All right, we've now approached the end of the funding sources and billing. So if you have any questions at this time, please let us know. Okay, so it looks like we don't have any questions. We're going to go ahead and move right into some of the enhancements to the corporate or organization part of MoSo. Okay, if you are a person that works in the business office or the back office, and you work with any corporate or organizations that pay for their members, pay for their employees' memberships, this is for you. You are going to be so excited because we have taken away the 50 invoice limit, and we're now allowing you to pay up to 1,000 invoices in one fell swoop. So this makes it literally, I'm going to say 20 times faster, because obviously 1,000 invoices divided by 50, yeah, so I just did that math quickly in my head. So smart. So I want to show you just how this is going to work. So I've pulled up an organization here, and if they have any balance, or if we go to balance remaining, either or, we're going to be able to access this make payment button. So if we want to make payments on invoices, we would just click here. Now watch what happens. I'm going to go to any balance. Let's go with that. Make payment. Hang on 1 second for me. I so appreciate your patience. I'm so sorry I didn't use that site for just a little bit of time. I do want to show you this because it is very exciting. But let's move on, and I'll come back and show you that feature. So we're going to move on to corporate enrollment eligibility. So we hear from you guys that sometimes different organizations or corporates will have a specific date range that their employees can sign up for a membership agreement through your fitness center. So maybe they can only come in on the 1st through the 5th, or maybe they can only come in the 15th through the 25th to enroll. We now are going to allow you the ability to restrict when these memberships can be sold. If someone tries to sell a membership outside of these days, MoSo is going to give you that warning banner that says, no, 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 this is not the date range that you selected for this particular organization. So the restriction has to be set when we're selling the member, or the organization, the agreement. So I have a law firm here as a customer, as one of my corporates, and I'm going to sell them a new corporate agreement. So as I'm selling them their new corporate agreement, you can see I've sort of started this one. So I'll just start this one over so that you can see from the beginning. So I'm selling them a corporate agreement. This particular company does 100%. They pay 100%. So we're going to go through. They're going to purchase my membership. They're going to purchase a one-year bundle, whatever it might be. Obviously, your options are different than mine. So I'm going to go through. They're going to select that they want no installments. Great. Okay, so we're moving through this wizard. No promotions here. No payment plans. Funding source, they're going to be manually billed through our statement billing. So here's the area on this add-on restrictions. This is the area that you are used to seeing. Are the add-ons are obviously allowed? Are the employees allowed to have family add-ons? You select the location that the law firm agreement can be sold. And then here's the ability to restrict if they need it, or if they want that restriction, you can select here. It will start today, and I'm going to say from the 10th of the month to the 20th of every month. So the 10th day through the 20th day, that is when these employees of law firm can join my club. And if they try to join on the 21st, it's going to tell them no. All right, so I hope I made that one fairly clear. All right, so we're going to go ahead and go back to this back office payment just so that I can show you what it looks like. So again, as I mentioned before, we now have the ability to process 1,000 invoices at a time versus just the 50 invoice limit. So this is really going to save you so much time. We've also created a search area. That will allow you to search by member name or by member ID if that particular member needs to be excluded from these 1,000 invoices. In addition, okay, so since we're still waiting, I'm going to let you work on that one. When you get Mercury, you can play around with that one. It will be great. Okay, so we did this one, and we're moving right through to limiting the promotions by organization type. So many of us offer monthly promotions that may not apply to some of the corporates that we have. So obviously within promotion management, we have the option to say combinable with promotion, right? So that's a little checkbox that says combinable with a corporate promotion. Since you usually price your corporates a little bit lower than your general membership, this section allows you to say, yes, I do want this particular promotion. We are going to waive, the enrollment fee for everybody or whatever else. So in Mercury, you can choose what types of organizations you'd like to combine the promotion or not combine the promotion. So sometimes our larger organizations may be eligible for more promotions because maybe the larger organizations, we might get more people to join that way. So whatever it is, this is going to allow you to configure the combinable promotion with a medium-sized company, large-sized company, however you have those organization types configured in MoSo. So you'll go through the promotion management, system configuration, and promotion management to be able to work on this. Okay. Do we have any questions on any of the corporate enhancements?
Katie, we have one question we need you to follow up and touch on, if you could, please.
Certainly. Okay. So this is a question about the credit card updater that we went over in the last section of slides. And they're asking, this particular person is asking how far out we want to ask the credit card updater to update our cards. So we really want to make sure that the selected CAU date, which is what it's called in MoSo, the standalone CAU, we want that date to be 7 to 10 days prior to your main billing date. So if you bill on the 1st, you're going to want to have it 7 to 10 days prior to that, so the 20-something of the month before. Okay?
Awesome. Thanks, Katie.
All right, moving on. Restrictions and permission changes. Okay, so since we were just talking about corporates, I thought that we would put this one right as the first slide right away as we got into any restrictions or permission changes, because this one is pretty exciting for many of you that have a corporate sales department, or maybe only your back office or business office are the people that are selling corporate agreements. So previously in MoSo, there was only one permission that controlled agreements. It was just adding new agreements. So now we've split the permissions to add a member agreement or add an organization agreement. So you can now manage who can add new corporate agreements, who can change or update the corporate agreements. We've added those permissions under organization management in the permissions tree. So that way, if your general membership consultants cannot sell corporate sales, they can only sell member agreements. On the drop-down for agreements, they're only going to see new agreement as the option instead of corporate agreement or agreement. Okay, restricting agreement actions. So I am going to start with what MoSo looks like today. Today, MoSo, if you can sell an agreement in MoSo, you can sell an agreement in MoSo. It doesn't limit what type of agreement you can sell. So if you are an organization that has membership agreements, service agreements, staff agreements, all of those types of classifications, Mercury is going to give you the ability to restrict who can sell those types of agreements, those classifications of agreements, along with who can cancel those, who can rewrite, or who can renew those agreements. So this is going to be based on permissions, and I'm going to show you exactly what that looks like. So if we go to staff work roles, we'll see here in this example, we have a front desk, a general manager, personal trainer, and a sales advisor. So maybe I want my personal trainer to be able to sell service agreements because personal training falls under service, but I don't want them to be able to sell any type of membership agreement, and I also want to make sure any cancellations are going through the general manager or the fitness director. So in this case, I would edit the agreement classification security for the personal trainer. So they can sell service agreements, they can rewrite or renew the service agreement. I would like, as a general manager or as the system administrator, I would like someone as a director or back office to cancel or suspend the service agreement. So I'm not allowing the trainer to have those abilities. Now, it's important to note that if you would like the personal trainer to be able to rewrite, suspend, or cancel, they also need those corresponding permissions in the permission tree. So please make sure, if you're testing this and they say, no, I can't rewrite it because I don't have access to any of the rewrite reasons, or I can't suspend it. So make sure that you check that if these are the things you're allowing this work role to do, that the permission tree reflects those permissions as well. All right. So we're going to move on. All right, here we go. The next one is to restrict access to member fields. Now, restricting access to member fields, we had been able to do this only for first name, last name in a previous release or in MoSo. What we're doing now is we are allowing you to decide what work roles can add, change, or view any of the fields within a member tab or the organization tab. So what essentially this is going to do is allow you to better protect the privacy of your members, and it's going to preserve the integrity of your data a bit by saying, my front desk people can make sure that we look at first names, last names, and email addresses, but we don't really use the mailing address at the front desk, and if the screen is left open, we don't want anybody to be able to view that or see that. So the way that we can do this is, again, back at the staff work roles. We can see the data field buttons, and we can see that in this particular case, the front desk is allowed to do all of these things, but maybe they're not allowed to add a date of birth, or they're not allowed to add a last visit, anything like that. So we can just restrict the permissions from this area here, as well as the organization. It's also important to remember that any required field, so if it has an asterisk next to it, they'll automatically have the ability to add that field because it's required. So please make note of that. In addition, there's now a copy feature up here. So if you select these particular permissions for one work role, you can copy from a particular work role to the next work role, so you don't have to do this, let's pretend you have several, 10, 15 work roles, you can just copy and create that new work role with the same permission. Okay, we're cruising right along. We've just come to the end of our restrictions and permissions section. Does anyone have any specific questions regarding the new permissions or restrictions that we have allowed for in Mercury? Okay, great. So no questions. All right, we're going to move on to the reporting module. So it's first important to note that we have taken some of the reports from the financial section and we've grouped them into different headings. So there'll now be a section for financial reconciliation, gift card management, and also collection and AR. A number of our reports have also been renamed. So we want you to go ahead and take a look at the wiki to see which reports have been renamed. We think that they sort of better describe what their report is pulling. But we want to make sure that you take a look at that graph that's located on the wiki so that any reports that you're currently using today, you're not alarmed when you're upgraded to Mercury and you say, that report's no longer here. It's just called something different. Okay, so we have some new reports for you. Now, I'm not going to go through each and every one of these reports because some of them don't pertain to everyone. So what we really want you to do is look over the headings, what they're called. They're in new activity reports, new agreement reports, and what they're going to do. So funding sources, obviously it's going to provide information about the funding source. First-time activity user, it will let you know when a member first purchases a unit of an activity. So this presentation is going to be emailed to you after, along with some links to the wiki and so on. So what we really want you to do is focus on these last few slides around the new reports, financial organization reports. Let you take a look at that for a second. And then also some exception and audit reports. There are a lot of reports added to this section. So again, we want you to take some time, scroll through. You can look at the PowerPoint and then match what you're looking for with the wiki so that you know what these reports are going to do when they appear under your standard reporting in Mercury.
Presentation. I know maybe you can't hear the applause, but based on some of the comments we're seeing inside of the chat window, great job. Thank you so much for your time this afternoon.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions from our audience? We've been trying to respond to you directly via the chat session so we can give you an answer here while we're together. Anybody else have any questions for Katie on general features and enhancements that are being introduced in MoSo Mercury? Well, if there's no other questions from the audience today, let me thank you for attending the MoSo Mercury webinar, and this will conclude our webinar for today. Thank you.